Light up your investments with Farm to Flame Energy, where the sparks of innovation meet the power of clean energy. This revolutionary startup is transforming the way we generate electricity, offering a greener and more cost-effective alternative to diesel.
Next Pitch TV showcases the most innovative equity crowdfunding campaigns for the verdict of the crowd.
Behind this electrifying venture is Kwaku Jamfi, a visionary leader with a passion for sustainable energy solutions.
First of all, Kwaku, welcome to Next Pitch TV, where we showcase the most innovative equity crowdfunding campaigns for the verdict of the crowd. And I have to say that when it comes to Farm to Flame Energy, I'm really quite amazed by the whole concept. But rather than me going onto it, since you're converting energy, I guess, from farm products, if I understand correctly, never mind. I'll let you explain it better, what exactly it is that you're doing, and above all, how you came up with the idea in the first place.
Yeah, essentially, we are taking agricultural waste, like wood waste, corn stalks, paper waste, etc., to heat and power. And we are doing this because it's carbon neutral. The reason why I started was because my co-founder, Will McKnight, him and I studied environmental engineering at Syracuse University. And in my senior year, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, my grandfather and uncle patented this combustion process. They've been working on it for the past 10 years. They pulverize wood chips, corn stalks, etc., and they burn it with no smoke and odor. And I want to turn it into a generator." And that was just very exciting to me. I always wanted to do water treatment. I always wanted to build things as a child. So it was a strong passion project. And I realized I could have use in a lot of developing nations. My parents being from Ghana, and Nigeria is right next to Ghana. There's a big problem with diesel generator usage in Nigeria. We knew we could solve this problem with that. So that's why we started.
I love it. I mean, basically, as you say, the implications, not just in the West, but especially in the third world, so to speak, are immense. And this is exactly what this world needs, especially in this day and age of global warming. If one can create energy in this way and at the same time reduce agricultural waste, wow, that is one phenomenal combination. So now, I noticed that this is your second equity crowdfunding campaign, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us, why did you decide to go this particular path as opposed to conventional financing from either angel, VCs, and so forth?
Yeah, well, it started with my former CCO, Stefano. He first had the idea to go on WeFunder. And at first, I was kind of hesitant, kind of against it. I didn't really understand it. And we were talking with a few VCs at the time. But when we got on this platform, which was in 2022, was the first time we got on, we got a lot of support. First, some of our friends and family had invested. And then after that point, when we went public on the WeFunder page and they started showing it to people, that mixed with our outreach, it helped us raise. I mean, that was the largest so far that we had raised from a single entity, like WeFunder being a single line on the cap table, even though it encapsulates all the investors who've invested. It just yielded the most results. And so I think people could really resonate on an individual level with what we're doing. And even some of our investors have come to help us raise more money, to help us with customer outreach in their network. And so it was just another idea at the time to raise money, especially in 2022 when we started going into kind of like a recession almost because of some of the inflation that happened from COVID. So it was definitely helpful, and I just decided it would be great to do it again.
Great. I mean, let me make sure I understand. When you say WeFunder is a single entry in your cap table, does that mean you're referring to a special purpose vehicle for all the investors? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I just mean So we raise money from certain investors. One of our investors, Richard King Mellon. And so that's one entity. We funders an SPV, even though it encapsulates all of our over 300 investors. I'm just mean the special purpose vehicle.
Right.
So it could have been Smart Engine, it could have been whatever, but um, just that vehicle being WeFunder, we just found so much success relatively in there.
Right. I mean, I think that you put your finger on a very important aspect of equity crowdfunding. That is to say, if you had not had access to this SPV through WeFunder, in effect, what it would have meant that you would have had 300 individuals, I guess, on your cap table. Well, if you take that kind of a cap table to a conventional funding, i.e. VC angel, they would laugh you out of the room. It's kind of, we're not going to invest with that many stakeholders, as it were. But in this case, since it's a single entry, I don't know how big your cap table is, but probably relatively modest. And that makes all the difference. Modest in quantity numbers is what I'm saying. And so in other words, it's a way of having the best of both worlds. Because you have 300 supporters, what are they investing? I don't know, $100, $500, something like that. So it's not a huge investment, but cumulatively, obviously, it adds up. And arguably, what's good is that they, in many cases, actually can become evangelists for your project, which is kind of like, wow, it doesn't get any better from that point of view. And the whole point, at least in my mind, for a good number of equity crowdfunding campaigns is precisely that it's a relatively modest investment. Why are they making it, given that 9 out of 10 startups fail? Ooh, I love the idea. Wow, if you can succeed with this, that is really, quite frankly, kind of a game changer. And I think this is actually indeed what is possible in this case. So that's very nice to see. Now, what exactly are your plans for the future? Obviously, you want to expand, but is your focus actually on the US primarily? Or are you already looking at countries like Ghana, for example, to expand this system here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have made a lot of progress in the US, and we plan to install our first 1,000 kilowatts of generators in the US. And so that reason being is just that, our team is from here, and there's a lot of support here. We've found great success of partner pilotships with organizations like Georgia Pacific. That's the largest wood waste electricity producer in the country because they use their paper waste for heat and power. We have some farms who want to take on our generator here. And that is all preparing us for a landscape which takes a little more preparation, like Ghana. But in Ghana, actually in 2023, we signed a $20 million contract with a company called Cocoa Processing Company. And this is for a 5 megawatt combined heat and power plant. And so that was actually through one of our connections at the Pittsburgh Technology Council that they put us in touch with someone who was trying to develop a energy project for this corporation who makes chocolate. And that was very interesting because it shows there's a lot of demand on the corporate side, and that could be internationally. There could be corporations like Unilever who maybe have an energy plant somewhere in Singapore or something, or a processing plant where they make a certain type of material and their waste feedstock can be used for heat and power. Oftentimes because that waste feedstock is a liability. So we're starting to see these examples of other countries who need a combined heat and power, or even just the electricity solution that pairs with their waste stream problem. We are just focusing our efforts, like our on-the-ground efforts and installation efforts for these next 2 years, primarily in the eastern coast of the U.S., so we could really build a lot of traction around that and have a lot of pilot cases of our generators working in the field.
Interesting. So if I understand this correctly, the system, I believe, is included or combined in a container, if I see that correctly. And this container contains everything that's necessary ultimately. So it's relatively mobile, I would imagine. But the whole point is that the end customer actually not only has the fuel, in effect, which hitherto was probably literally largely wasted, they might even have to pay for to get rid of, but in this case becomes the fuel to generate electricity. In other words, it's a 2-for-1 special in this regard, if I understand this correctly. Is that right, or am I missing something here?
It's pretty precise. I mean, it's the front end and the back end. So you're saving money by converting a liability, which is your waste, because you have to pay to get it removed, and you're converting that into an asset. Basically, you're converting it to an energy source that could be 20% or 30% cheaper than your current energy usage. And so, depending on where you stay, that energy savings can range. The tipping fees we found in the U.S. are pretty commonly between like $15 and $30 per ton. That's what we see. So there's a lot of opportunity for the fuel savings, like the waste processing savings or waste management savings, and then the energy savings. It's basically two vehicles here.
Now, how involved is it? Meaning that, okay, we understand the logic of utilizing or using waste. You don't have to pay for it. Yes, you can burn and so on. But what does it involve in terms of human interaction, especially since the machinery, I'm assuming, is actually pretty sophisticated? In other words, it's not just a question, I'm guessing, of here's my waste, throw it in X container or whatnot, and then it just simply gets processed. But there's a lot of sophisticated technology that goes into it. How involved is that, and how difficult is it as a result to make sure that there are people that can run this thing, especially if, let's say, you're in Ghana, for example?
Yeah, so it depends on the size. Our shipping container-based generators basically go up to 500 kilowatts, and anything larger than that, we're building a stationary power plant. And so with the shipping container-based generators, right now we're actually in the process of automating it more with different like solenoid valves and automated valves, basically running the steam turbine generator. The boiler is automated itself, so it's able to keep the same operating pressure based on this logic that we have on a controller. It basically controls the firing rate, the fuel feed rate of the boiler, everything like that to keep those levels. In terms of the steam turbine, when you're starting it up, once you set it to its correct position, you can just leave it and walk away. Now, with a larger power plant, there's a lot more controls that go into a stationary power plant. There's different emissions controls that you need. But really it's in terms of the boiler and steam turbine and the major components like that, once you set it, it's really quite easy to just leave it alone. It's really the emissions monitoring that we would need 1 or 2 operators for. And then everything else is just on an operation and maintenance contract, which includes scheduled and unscheduled maintenance. So they'll be coming periodically throughout the year just to make sure the key components in the system are up to date and working.
That's interesting. I mean, let's play devil's advocate. Here, I'm a customer. I just went ahead and ordered your system and so forth. Am I actually buying the system, or am I leasing the system, or how exactly does that work? And if, for example, it's a lease system, does it come with the support?
That also depends. So we have 2 models. We have a power purchase agreement, and we have an agreement called engineering, procurement, and construction, plus operation and maintenance. So the latter one, EPC plus O&M, that is where the customer buys the equipment, and then they also purchase from us the services, which is the operation and maintenance contract to upkeep the equipment. That's for a larger corporation like Georgia Pacific or Cocoa Processing Company, where they prefer to buy the equipment so that they can experience savings on their solution, and they just have more financial incentives to buy it. But for a smaller customer like a farm or for example, a furniture making company, they may not be able to afford the capital expenditure of the equipment, so they will lease it. We maintain ownership of the equipment, and we enter an agreement called the power purchase agreement with them, where we sell them strictly the heat and the power. And we sell them to that, basically including scheduled maintenance and unscheduled maintenance. So that's included in the price of power. So if it's 14 cents per kilowatt hour, part of that is the scheduled and unscheduled maintenance. Now, you see each of them have maintenance, but one of them, which is an EPC plus O&M, you're buying the equipment, and the other one, we maintain ownership of the equipment. But the point of the maintenance is to make it as easy for the customer as possible to adopt the solution and just know that they'll be having consistent power with longer uptimes.
Right, makes every sense. Now, I'm looking at a picture of the system, and or at least the one of the systems, and it appears, as I said, to be a container, if I see that correctly. The smaller ones, anyway. So the question does arise: since you're doing power, why wouldn't you, for example, clad the whole damn thing in solar panels? And maybe even have a couple of sticks going out to have some wind energy kind of while you're at it. Does that make any sense, or is that just my imagination talking here?
It can. If you actually see on our original designs on our website, we had solar panels on the top of our shipping container. And that's basically for startup. In remote locations, this will need an uninterrupted power supply, basically to start up the generator, like to get the boiler to operating pressure, and then get the steam turbine running. You need a remote power, or you need an uninterrupted power supply. And so that can definitely be useful in remote locations. It's just with the organizations we're working with right now, they're already hooked up to the grid. So this is serving as something that is going to continuously generate power, and it's going to be metered to the grid. And then when they need a backup power source, say if there's a blackout, the automatic transfer switch will switch to our generator's power. But this will be like a 24/7 solution, so it will already be having an uninterrupted power supply without the need of solar panels and wind turbines. So that's the case of the customers that we've had right now. And part of the reason is that allows us to just get further product traction, starting in areas close to us with people who have been early adopters and just interested in our solution.
No, I totally love it. I mean, again, especially referring to the third world, one would think that this might be the kind of project that, quite frankly, would be very suitable to get grants from, both governments and otherwise. Is that something that you've already pursued or are looking to pursue?
Yeah, we have. Even right now, our generator demonstration is being funded by the state of New Jersey. Oh. I'm personally from New Jersey, and we received back in 2021 the first New Jersey Clean Tech Seed Grant that helped us to build out that generator. And then we recently just received another grant for $250,000 called the New Jersey Clean Tech Pilot Demonstration Grant, which is to demonstrate the generator working. So they've been a large help to us. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has given us an SBIR Phase 1 grant in 2021. That helped us also to get our fuel processing equipment. And New Jersey even matched that grant as well. They've matched part of it. So those two organizations have been a large help to us. And as we demonstrate this technology working in the field, we're looking to continue working with organizations like that and whoever else is interested in supporting what Farm to Flame is doing, especially creating clean tech jobs. That's something that's huge. A lot of my operators and plant managers have come out of the coal industry. They're very interested in what we're doing. Some of them have worked, even my steam turbine operators worked in pulverized coal. And we're doing pulverized biomass and biomass wood pellets. So just that we have people with adjacent knowledge in those fields, and seeing so many coal plants being decommissioned in the U.S., there's so much talent that is just great to work with, and they want to teach the next generation like me, basically, how to maneuver in the industry, to pass off the torch and everything, proverbial torch and everything like that. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Now, this is your first startup, I'm assuming. Is that correct? Or have you done it? I mean, it must have been a pretty harrowing experience, quite frankly, because the difference between expectations and reality are usually quite stark. I'm talking about for a startup. In other words, it doesn't matter if the idea is right, and even if the implementation is right, there are so many challenges to running a startup that, quite frankly, without experience, it's something one has to overcome, which clearly you've done. And that is just really absolutely great to see. Now, are you planning down the road to do additional fundraising through equity crowdfunding, or are you likely to actually go towards more conventional funding?
We would do both, to be honest. We don't want to be limited to anything, and just wherever the market demand is, wherever we could best serve our investors, we'll be looking to do both. So we could see ourselves going into Start Engine. We could see ourselves going also to the traditional investor route. We don't have any specific qualms against anything.
Now, it's interesting. If I understand it correctly, your current campaign is going to expire in 2025. Is that right, or is that not correct?
No, it's going to expire. Oh, I hope that's not correct. It's going to expire in June 15th of this year. So actually, in just about a month.
Oh,
And we'll have about a month to invest.
now that's interesting. And you mentioned Start Engine. Why Start Engine in particular? I mean, have you already reached out to them, or is that already...
No, they've just been reaching out to us, and it seems like they have an interest in what we're doing. So there was no real specific impetus, just besides seeing that a lot of our investors who come from WeFunder are also interested in Start Engine, and there's another network there as well who would be interested in what we're doing.
Right. I mean, given that that would be your third campaign, you're now, in that case, exposing it to a whole different group. Yes, some of them, as you say, are investors of both WeFund or through WeFunder and Start Engine. But definitely that, I think, is a very valuable thing to do, to get exposure to, in many cases, a different group of supporters. So that I think is a very sensible move on your part. If you go with Start, it doesn't matter whether it's Start Engine or Republic or what have you, or Dealmaker even for that matter. The important part is to give exposure to a whole different group. So that I think is definitely not just viable, but likely to be very successful for you. So we're going to go ahead and edit and publish the interview at the quickest time possible, since, as you say, I was wrong in terms of the deadline. Obviously, we want to get it out to drive traffic to your campaign as much as possible. So we'll get onto that immediately. And I thank you very much indeed for coming on to the interview. And I wish you all the very best of luck with this really phenomenal campaign.
Thank you, Ralph. I appreciate you. Thank you for reaching out, and thank you for your time as well today.
Great. Have a great day. Take care.
So.
Join the energy revolution and invest in farm to flame energy, because the future is too bright to be powered by anything less than clean, affordable electricity. To know more about the featured campaign, subscribe now to nextpitch.tv.